Good day everyone, my name is Chelsey Matthys and I'm a Master of Conservation Science candidate at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Today I'll be presenting to you my research titled A Framework to Declare Alien Species Absent from a Country, with South Africa being a case study. This research is supported by the South African National Biodiversity Institute as well as the Centre of Excellence for Invasion Biology and the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment of the Republic of South Africa. The academic supervisors are Professor John Wilson as well as Professor 𝙏𝙚𝙪𝙧𝙧𝙧. According to research, the presence of an alien species on a legislated list does not always guarantee that it is physically present within a country. There are some cases where a species may have been present but is no longer present due to eradication or other natural causes. There are other cases where species may have never been present within a country, however are listed for precautionary measures, and there are so many other reasons why a species may be listed, however it is doubtful that it is in the country. Examples of this can be seen in South Africa. Several species are listed under the NEMBA Alien and Invasive Species Regulations but do not appear to be present within the country. Two examples stand out for us. On the left, you'll see Euphorbia esula, which is an alien invasive species in other countries. However, it has only been recorded once within Southern Africa, with no concrete evidence that it has been present in the country. However, it is listed on the Alien and Invasive Species Regulations. On the right, we've got Tetraphagus niger, which was introduced to the country. Its presence was confirmed. However, eradication attempts were actioned, as well as the location where the species was present had dried up due to natural causes. However, this species is still listed as an alien on the Alien and Invasive Species Regulations. Why this is a problem is that management efforts may go to the wrong species. Sometimes species that are in the country may go undetected and they may invade while we are prioritizing other species. In other cases, resources, time and effort may be wasted on a species that is no longer in the country, but it will be spent on those species because it is listed on national legislation. Our aim is therefore to construct a framework to provide decision makers with a transparent and consistent process for declaring alien species as absent from a country. There is currently no formal way of adding and removing species from a country list of alien and invasive species, and thus we have come up with this aim for this project. We started off this process by conducting a literature review internationally on the listing of alien and invasive species in countries. We then created a preliminary framework with the information that was gathered, and this is what we came up with initially. As you can see, this looks very messy, untidy, and a bit confusing. We tried to fit so much information and variables into a hierarchy diagram, but we felt that it needed a more structured and concise method of going ahead with this framework. We then took the preliminary framework as well as the literature review information to workshop with 30 professionals within the invasion biology sphere, those working in field as well as those who are doing research on invasive alien species. This is the framework that we came up with. It is a 4-part which starts with an equation, moves on to a literature review on the candidate species or the species under review. The information from the literature review will then be placed into an argument map which will help us decide the likelihood and probability scoring for the species. If we look at the equation, we wanted to determine the probability of absence, and in order to do so, we considered the probability that the species has been present. We therefore considered under this portion in the literature review the historical record and evidences and information on the species within the country. We then looked at the probability that the species is currently still present. We looked at things like and considered evidences and information in the literature review for the candidate species, such as natural disturbances, the probability and likelihood that all populations were removed or eradicated or lost, amongst other things, and when was the most recent record of the species. This all was dependent on the probability that the species has been present. Why this is important is because any species with no presence data was not considered. We only considered species with disputed presence data, and that is what this framework is intended for. For example, we'll look at 𝙏𝙚𝙪𝙧𝙧, which is the Chilean black urchin, which is an alien species within the country. It was reported to be in the country with physical evidence of the species. This is an example of the argument map. So once a literature review is conducted, considering every bit of the equation, we thus are left with a claim that the Chilean black urchin is absent, one reason, evidence to support the reason, an objection and evidence to support the objection. I'm going to just use reason 1 as an example. So if the reason 1 will support the claim that the species is absent, for this we use an example saying uncertainty in original records. So the original record may have had no population size, very limited information, and it was 13 years ago. We then say the objection is that the species was positively identified and recorded, and the evidence to support this objection is that it taxonomically confirmed and the species was archived, as well as the exact location was given for the species. So that's just a simple example as to how the argument map will work and runs. Gives you an opportunity to weigh up your evidence that supports the claim that the species is absent or not absent. We then plug that information into the equation once again. Once we've weighed it up, we then go based on expert opinion where this framework is intended to be used by more than one individual. It is advised that you seek expert advice on specific species and those working in the invasion biology sector. If we use the information provided for 𝙏𝙚𝙪𝙧𝙧, we will see that the probability that it has been present is high because it was a physical specimen. And then we'll also see that the probability for the species still being present is low because there was an eradication attempt. The species was not reported then again after the eradication attempt, and is basically strong evidence to show that the species is no longer in the country. We are thus left with a low scoring because we are looking at current presence, and thus -1 will give us the flip of that, which indicates that the presence of absence is then high, due to the fact that the probability of current presence is low. In essence, lists of alien species should ideally be based on field observations with a physical specimen that is curated in a collection and whose identity has been confirmed both morphologically and through molecular methods. However, as we've seen, this is not always achieved and not always possible, and therefore species are put on a list with such errors. Such errors can inflate species numbers, create confusion, and lead to wasted management effort, as we have mentioned before. On the flip side of this, if a species is removed from a list prematurely, declaring it absent would also mean that there is an opportunity for nationwide eradication that will be lost. We are therefore stressing once again the importance of a clear and concise protocol for declaring species absent, and we feel that we have achieved this in this study. By clearly setting out the arguments for and against its current presence, we believe this process may assist with the transparently motivating to declare species absent from a country, and could in consequence also assist with motivating for or against the removal from or recategorization on a regulatory list of alien species within any country. Thank you so much for your attention, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to present to you my research.